Well, Naveen, it's good to see you again, and I trust you're keeping well.
Yes, absolutely, Rodney, and hopefully you are also well.
Very good, thanks. Very good.
Yeah.
So, Naveen, here at KPMG, you lead a global team focusing on the technical topic of permanent establishment. Can you tell me briefly about permanent establishment from an India perspective?
So, Rodney, the permanent establishment is a hot potato item from Indian tax authority standpoint. And determination of P is a subjective exercise, and in fact, it is highly subjective at times. And the Indian tax authorities are quite arbitrary and aggressive at times. And to top this, the PE income gets taxed at the highest rate of 43%. So you can imagine, all these factors combined, it's a very potent combination. And let me give you one data point. IBFD is a compilation of information from more than 200 countries around the world. And if you look at the tax rulings reported in IBFD database on PE issues, the Indian rulings constitute about 35% of the overall rulings.
A high percentage given the percentage of population. So tell me about some areas where you've seen in practice the Indian tax authorities raise the question of permanent establishment.
Well, there are lots of interesting stories, and let me share a few interesting ones. So, in fact, in one of the cases, a US company sent a few employees to render services in India, and the project lasted for about 85 days. And then these guys took a weeks off to go for sightseeing to Taj Mahal and other activities. And the India-US treaty provides for 90 days threshold for service fee. And the Indian tax authorities combined the project duration with the 1 week of time to say that you have a P in India. Now, how do you prove that you went for 7 days off and you went for sightseeing in Taj Mahal? I mean, you won't preserve entry tickets to Taj Mahal, and that too 2 years later in time when the audit gets conducted by the authorities. So the result is the P in India. In fact, in one of the cases that I handled, one commissioner told me that the moment you step onto Terminal 3 of Indira Gandhi International Airport in New Delhi, you create a P in India. So that's the view of a tax officer. But and this is regarding physical presence. And so far as virtual presence is concerned, the less said, the better it is. I am handling one case which is presently pending in the Supreme Court. And when its hearing was going on before the lower courts, the counsel of the income tax department put up an argument, a very, very novel argument. He said that the mirror image of the server located in a foreign country is brought into India by virtue of internet connection. And what foreign company could have done directly is being done indirectly. And this is sufficient to create a P in India.
Wow.
I mean, thankfully, the judges did not agree to that. Otherwise, this would have created P of the whole world into India. But, this is how some of the cases are being argued in this fashion. And this is not the solitary instance. So, for example, even search engine like Yahoo or Google, whether that creates a permanent establishment in India. I mean, if you look at it, it is present in India by way of website or a search engine, but there is no tangible property out there, right? And that's what is adding to the complexity and disputes, because the rules relating to permanent establishment were designed way back in 70 years back in time. I think in 1958 when the OECD came up with the draft definition of PE for the first time. And look at the way of conducting business then versus now. I mean, you would realize that the definition has outlived its utility and does not stand the test of PE in current e-commerce world.
Gosh, so certainly some traps for the unwary. That story you had about the team going on vacation and all of a sudden that getting aggregated. Certainly a topic to be very sensitive to, particularly given the tax rates that you cited. So I'm curious, Naveen, what are the forensic skills of the Indian tax authorities in this space? Because there must be a lot of multinationals inadvertently tripping these rules.
Right. No, Rodney, and the forensic skills of Indian authorities have, some of the authorities, some of the officials are very smart, very bright, and they've gone beyond the traditional means of verification exercises. And let me give you one example. In India, the income from agricultural operations is exempt from tax, and a person claimed exemption of money earned from agricultural operations 3 years back in time. Now, how do you prove that 3 years back, that person was carrying out agricultural operations on a land that when the tax officer visited the site, it was a completely barren land? Now, how do you prove that 3 years back what was happening? So he actually obtained satellite images of that land from ISRO, which is equivalent to NASA from your side, and then which completely showed that it was a completely barren land with no sign of green. So that's the kind of technology that Indian tax officials are making use of, and and in fact, even in the context of permanent establishments, a large US multinational company, they made a claim that their activities in India were only market research and it is only preparatory and auxiliary, does not have a PE in India. The tax officer simply searched the LinkedIn profile of some of the employees of the US company. And some of the observations were startling because an employee had written that he was awarded the chairman's award of super sales employee during the year. And he bagged $100 million contract from an Indian customer. And in view of these observations, how would you cross argue that you do not have a P in India? So that's where I think the tax officials are taking it, all these verification exercises a notch higher.
That's interesting, and that certainly points to how it sounds like they're certainly staying a step ahead of technology and employing that to best use as they assess what are the facts on the ground. And it's a good reminder, I guess, to everyone to sort of think about how would we prove these things should we need to before it's too late. So really interesting, Naveen. Any other parting words on this subject?
Well, I would say that the tax department is watching, and be careful and mind your steps.
Well, very, very good advice. And certainly when I come and visit and go see the Taj Mahal again, I will be counting my days super carefully. So, so Naveen, thank you very much for your time. Stay healthy in these COVID times, huh?
Thank you, Rodney. My pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.